Khurana coming up in the next 30 minutes. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Delhi after attending BRICS Summit in Russia. Israel Hezbollah exchange heavy fire as Blinken pushes for peace. US concerned about reports of Israeli strikes on Lebanon military. Severe cyclonic storm Dana set to make landfall on Odisha coast. High alert issued. Heavy rain continues due to storm. And in cricket, India looks to bounce back as they take on New Zealand in the second test in Pune. On to the details now. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in New Delhi after attending the BRICS Summit in Kazan, Russia. During his visit, PM Modi held bilateral meetings with Chinese President Xi Jinping, Russian President Vladimir Putin and newly elected Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian on the sidelines of the summit. PM Modi also held bilateral meetings with the President of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, and Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the United Arab Emirates. Well, the global leaders during the 6th BRICS Summit in Kazan, Russia on October 22nd-23rd held deliberations on various pressing issues impacting cooperation among the member countries. The theme of the summit was strengthening multilateralism for just global development and security. At the conclusion of the summit, the leaders adopted the Kazan Declaration, in which the member states affirmed their commitment to the BRICS spirit of mutual respect and understanding, sovereign equality, solidarity, democracy, openness, inclusiveness, collaboration and consensus. Prime Minister Narendra Modi intervened in various sessions of the summit, affirming his support for the grouping and asked member nations to adopt policy dialogue and diplomacy for resolving contentious issues. Here's a report.
The 16th BRICS Summit in Kazan marked a pivotal moment in global diplomacy as new members joined the group for the first time since its expansion in 2023. A unified message was sent to the world, stronger, united and ready to face global challenges together. During the plenary session, Prime Minister Narendra Modi emphasized a people-centric approach to problem-solving on the global stage and stressed the importance of reformed multilateralism. He praised BRICS for its achievements, which have reshaped the global economy.
नए स्वरूप में ब्रिक्स $30 ट्रिलियन से भी ज्यादा बड़ी इकोनॉमी है। हमारे आर्थिक सहयोग को बढ़ाने में ब्रिक्स बिजनेस काउंसिल और ब्रिक्स विमेन बिजनेस अलायंस की विशेष भूमिका रही है। इस वर्ष ब्रिक्स के अंदर WTO रिफॉर्म्स, ट्रेड फैसिलिटेशन इन एग्रीकल्चर, रेजिलिएंट सप्लाई चेन्स, ई-कॉमर्स और स्पेशल इकोनॉमिक जोन को लेकर जो सहमति बनी है, उससे हमारे आर्थिक सहयोग को बल मिलेगा।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi also raised pressing concerns from economic instability to climate change and terrorism, urging BRICS to take a leadership role in guiding the world towards the right path. He highlighted the new development bank's contributions to ensuring long-term financial sustainability and emphasized the need to build stronger economic ties, especially through supporting small and medium enterprises.
हमें स्मॉल और मीडियम स्केल इंडस्ट्री के हितों पर भी फोकस करना चाहिए। मुझे खुशी है कि 2021 में भारत की अध्यक्षता के दौरान प्रस्तावित ब्रिक्स स्टार्टअप फोरम इस वर्ष लॉन्च किया जाएगा। भारत द्वारा दिया गया रेलवे रिसर्च नेटवर्क का इनिशिएटिव भी ब्रिक्स देशों के बीच लॉजिस्टिक्स और सप्लाई चेन कनेक्टिविटी बढ़ाने में अहम भूमिका निभा रहा है।
In the backdrop of ongoing conflicts in West Asia and Ukraine, Prime Minister Narendra Modi reaffirmed India's commitment to peaceful resolutions through diplomacy and dialogue. He urged BRICS members to collaborate in ensuring food, energy, health and water security while also addressing new age threats like cyber deepfakes and disinformation. What began as a convergence of diverse ideologies in BRICS is now a beacon of positive cooperation, strengthened by its newly expanded membership. With Tripti Tripathi, Tanvi Taneja for DD India.
And updates from West Asia conflict now. U.S. has expressed concern to Israel about strikes against the Lebanese armed forces. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, in a telephonic conversation with his Israeli counterpart, Yoav Gallant, said that Washington had concerns about strikes against the Lebanese armed forces. Pentagon, in a statement, said that Austin asked Israel to take steps to ensure the safety and security of the Lebanese armed forces and the UN peacekeeping mission in Lebanon. Austin also told Israeli Defense Minister that Washington welcomed the movement of humanitarian assistance through the Erez crossing into northern Gaza and urged Israel to take steps to address the dire situation there. And Israeli strikes pounded Beirut's southern suburbs on Wednesday, while Hezbollah said it fired precision-guided missiles for the first time at Israeli targets. The strikes on the edges of Beirut sent thick columns of flames shooting up into the night sky, one after the other, shortly after an Israeli military spokesman issued evacuation warnings for the neighborhood. Another strike hit the nearby office of a media house. Well, Hezbollah has meanwhile said that it had escalated its attacks on Israel using precision missiles for the first time and launched new types of drones on Israeli targets. The group later said it had targeted an Israeli military factory on the outskirts of Tel Aviv. Around the time of Hezbollah's claim, air raid sirens sounded in Tel Aviv and neighboring cities. Also, the intensifying exchanges of fire come as Washington makes a final major push for peace between Israel and Hezbollah and Hamas before the November 5th U.S. presidential election. And moving on, at least 5 people have been killed and 22 injured after an attack at a state-owned aerospace company near the Turkish capital, Ankara. Videos from the attack earlier on Wednesday show at least 2 people firing guns around the entrance of Turkish aerospace industries. Interior Minister Ali Yerlikaya said that 2 attackers, a woman and a man, have been neutralized, adding that the attack had most likely involved Kurdish rebel group, the PKK. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack so far.
When compared to previous similar attacks, we have a strong opinion that it is in the PKK terrorist organization. But as I said, it will become certain once the identities of the attackers are determined, which we will announce with you to the public, our saintly people.
Well, Turkish authorities have imposed a media blackout on details of the attack, and users in large areas of the country have reported not being able to use social media. The PKK has been fighting against the Turkish state since the 1980s, calling for greater autonomy for the Kurds. Several countries list it as a terror group. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan, alongside Russia's Vladimir Putin, at a BRICS conference in the Russian city of Kazan, condemned the attack and accepted Putin's condolences. NATO, the United States, and the European Union also condemned the attack. Meanwhile, the White House condemned the attack in Ankara. The Turkish government has called the attack as an act of terrorism.
I do want to start by extending our thoughts to the victims of the horrible terrorist attack in Ankara, Turkey this morning. Our prayers are with all of those affected and their families, and of course also the people of Turkey at this very difficult time. Now, Turkish authorities, as they've said, are investigating this as a possible terrorist attack. And while we don't yet know the motive or who is exactly behind it, we strongly condemn this act of violence.
While U.S. has finalized its $20 billion share of a $50 billion loan package to Ukraine, drawing on frozen Russian assets, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and Ukrainian Finance Minister Serhiy Marchenko signed the agreement, which also includes $20 billion from the EU and $10 billion from other G7 nations. The funds, primarily held in Europe, will support Ukraine's economic and military needs with no burden on U.S. taxpayers. President Biden emphasized that $10 billion is set for military aid pending Congress approval, while the rest will be available by December. Ukrainian President Zelensky hailed the move, while Russia condemned it as state-sponsored theft, raising tensions between Washington and Moscow over the ongoing conflict. Well, for the first time, the U.S. has confirmed evidence of North Korean troops in Russia. U.S. officials revealed that around 3,000 North Korean soldiers were transported to the Russian city of Vladivostok by ship in early to mid-October. From there, they were moved to various military sites in eastern Russia for training.
We assess that between early to mid-October, North Korea moved at least 3,000 soldiers into eastern Russia. We assess that these soldiers traveled by ship from the Wonsan area in North Korea to Vladivostok, Russia. These soldiers then traveled onward to multiple Russian military training sites in eastern Russia, where they are currently undergoing training.
Well, a few weeks ahead of the election, U.S. presidential candidate Kamala Harris and Donald Trump campaign in their last leg. Harris unveiled her economic proposals, emphasizing the need for funding small businesses, and Trump had her rally in North Carolina. Here are key highlights of the campaign trail by the two leaders.
Campaigning in the United States is at its peak. All eyes are on the presidential election scheduled on November 5. With even less than 2 weeks to go, U.S. presidential candidates Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are going loud and clear on their poll promises. With economy to social reform to healthcare, all are covered. During an interview with NBC, Vice President and Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris said she would work to bring more funds to community banks to help Latino men secure small business loans.
Absolutely. And I am saying that in terms of every walk of life of our country. You know, I think part of what is important in this election is really not only turning the page, but closing the page and the chapter on an era that suggests that Americans are divided.
Taking a dig at opponent Kamala Harris, former U.S. President Donald Trump called her a low IQ individual while addressing a gathering in North Carolina on Tuesday.
With 4 more years of Kamala Harris, North Carolina will be an economic wasteland. That's what's going to happen. The rest of your companies are going to move out. Everybody knows that. The smart people know. She's the only one that doesn't know it. Low IQ. She's a low IQ individual.
Backing Harris, former U.S. President Barack Obama drew cheers from supporters at a rally in Madison. Obama is among the 18 million Americans who voted early in 2024 presidential election. Harris is the first black woman and South Asian to be selected as the presidential nominee for a major U.S. political party.
My point is, you'd be worried if Grandpa was acting like this. Right? You'd call up your brother, you'd call up your cousins, you say, have you noticed? But this is coming from somebody who wants unchecked power. So Wisconsin, we do not need to see what an older, loonier Donald Trump looks like with no guardrails. America's ready to turn the page. We are ready for a better story, Wisconsin. We are ready for a President Kamala Harris.
Latest Ipsos poll shows Harris leading marginally by 46% to 43% over former President Donald Trump. With a tight contest between candidates, every vote matters. Bureau Report, DD India.
While Mexican troops carry out an operation in Solican after the Defense Ministry said the military shot dead 19 suspected Sinaloa cartel members. According to a statement from the ministry, more than 30 gunmen fired at soldiers in the Sinaloa capital, Solican, on Monday, resulting in a shootout in which the cartel members were killed. It added that some of the suspected cartel gunmen fled the scene after federal agents returned fire. 7 vehicles, including machine guns, ammunition and military-style vests and helmets, were also seized. Sinaloa has seen a spike in violence since the arrest of cartel co-founder Ismael Zambada in the United States in July. While Boeing factory workers voted on a new contract proposal that could bring an end to a more than 5-week strike in a crucial moment for the troubled plane maker. The ballot will offer workers the choice to either accept or reject the deal with a simple 50% plus 1 majority needed to decide the result. If it passes, the strike ends. The latest offer includes a 35% pay hike over 4 years, a $7,000 ratification bonus, a reinstated incentive plan, and enhanced contributions to retirement plans. Over 30,000 machinists downed tools in Boeing's West Coast factories on September 13th, halting production of the best-selling 737 MAX. Since then, Boeing and the workers' union have been locked in negotiations, with both sides accusing the other of torpedoing talks. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. Finance Minister reiterates about India's influence in the world in a panel discussion on the Bretton Woods institutions at 80. World celebrates United Nations Day today when the UN Charter was adopted. And Zimbabwe smashes world record for the highest T20 international total, push India to 3rd spot in overall list.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked, we just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on. World is celebrating United Nations Day today on October 24th. This is the day in 1945 when the UN Charter was adopted, including 5 permanent members of the Security Council. India, along with many other countries, are demanding reform in the United Nations to reflect the realities of the present world, with India's inclusion in the Security Council as its permanent member, along with few more new deserving nations. DD India's correspondent Shumendra Ghosh talked exclusively to India's permanent representative to United Nations in New York, Ambassador Parvatani Harish, on the road ahead for the global body. Listen in.
October 24th is observed as United Nations Day. We are in New York, and I have with me India's permanent representative at the UN, Ambassador P. Harish. Help us understand the importance of this day. And given the security geopolitical crossroads that the world finds itself in, where does UN stand today?
The focus of this General Assembly session is leaving no one behind. 2 years of the pandemic and thereafter multiple wars and crises around the world has meant that we have missed our sustainable development targets. The effort of the international community, all nations gathering at the UN, has been to do a reboot of the multilateral system. This reboot of the multilateral system is going to impact positively all dimensions of the UN system. And last but not the least, on what we can all do together to combat climate change.
In all of this, how do you see India's evolving role with the United Nations as a founding member and partner?
For us, it is most important that we harness the UN system and the various frameworks for our own national growth and development. While a lot of focus remains on peace and security, and the Council on what it is able to or not able to do regarding international crisis, I think it is in this arena that we make the best impact globally and especially with our friends and partners in the developing world.
The demand for reform of multilateral institutions such as the UNSC has been long pending. What can we say is the road ahead in that regard?
What we are seeking to work in the intergovernmental process in the weeks and months ahead is to ensure that we move and transition to the next stage of a text-based negotiation in a time-bound framework.
It was India's permanent representative to the United Nations talking about the United Nations Day and India's role in this global body. With camera person Jaishankar, Shubhendu Ghosh for DD India in New York.
While Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said that India wants to enhance its influence in the world as 1 in every 6 person is Indian and the world cannot ignore India's economy. While participating in a panel discussion on the Bretton Woods Institutions at 80 Priorities for the Next Decade, organized by the Center for Global Development on the sidelines of the World Bank and IMF Annual Meetings 2024 in Washington, D.C. Finance Minister Sitharaman said that much before the IMF reaches some countries in the neighborhood in times of distress, India has given sums of money with no conditions attached.
Much before the IMFs of the world reach some countries in our neighborhood. And I'm not saying this with a sense of boast. I'm saying it more with a sense of responsibility. And again, sorry, I have no axe to grind with the IMF, but with no conditions attached. We have given sums of money, which I don't want to name here, number here, because my neighbors are very dear to me.
Right.
We've come out in time to help countries in distress.
She also said that India has followed policy of strategic and peaceful multilateralism. India has always stood in favor of multilateral institutions.
Thought of my Prime Minister came in, and this is well thought through. He once said India's priority is not to impose its dominance, in the sense we are the biggest democracy, we have in the world the largest population, but to enhance its influence. Now, why do we want to have our influence enhanced? It's only because the fact that today 1 in every 6 person in the world is an Indian. And you just cannot ignore our economy and the way in which it is growing. That's a second. And third, the skilled manpower which today is in India and also everywhere else running large corporations.
Well, prior to her U.S. visit, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman was in Mexico from October 17th to 20th, where she interacted with political and business leaders from various sectors in both Guadalajara and Mexico City. Well, high alert has been issued in the coastal areas of West Bengal, South 24 Parganas, as Cyclone Dana is set to make landfall in India's eastern state of Odisha between the night of October 24th and early October 25th. National Disaster Response Force teams and military rescue units are on standby to tackle the potential cyclone impact. India's Met Department forecast heavy to extremely heavy rainfall in Odisha and Gangetic, West Bengal, especially in districts like Baleswar, Bhadrak, Kendrapara and Puri from October 24th to 26th. Health workers in West Bengal's Gangasagar area acted swiftly to transport the pregnant women to safety, keeping in mind the devastation caused by past cyclones. The women were evacuated to a rural hospital as part of the administration's preparedness for the storm. Well, ahead of the imminent landfall of Cyclone Dana, the wheels of train coaches at West Bengal's Shalimar Station rail yard have been secured with chains and locks. Southeastern Railway officials stated that the powerful winds from the cyclone could cause the stationary coaches to roll, leading to potential accidents and damage to railway property. Meanwhile, Digha coastal police have begun alerting fishermen who are still out at sea, urging them to return immediately. Police boats are venturing into the deep sea using loudspeakers to broadcast the warnings. And in sports, India look to bounce back in the second test against New Zealand starting from Thursday in Pune, aiming to keep their hopes alive for qualifying for the ICC World Test Championship 2025 final. After losing the first test by 8 wickets due to overcast conditions and an underwhelming batting display, India must win 3 of their remaining 7 matches in the WTC cycle to stay in contention. Reports suggest that the Pune pitch will be low and slow, favouring the spinners. In the addition of Washington Sundar to the squad alongside spinners Ravichandran Ashwin, Ravindra Jadeja and Akshar Patel signals India's intent to rely heavily on spin. Sundar's inclusion adds depth to the spin attack as India adjusts their strategy for the must-win match. And Zimbabwe set a new T20 international world record with a staggering total of 344 in the ICC Men's T20 World Cup sub-regional Africa qualifier against Gambia on Wednesday. Zimbabwe surpassed Nepal's previous benchmark of 314, which they achieved against Mongolia during Hangzhou Asian Games in 2023. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. Well, we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.